Hello, I'm Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. This is the 10th video in making the Beginners Sampler Quilt. I will take you through all steps to complete this quilt. There are 12 blocks in all, so if you're just getting started, at the very end of the video in the upper right hand corner is a link you can click on to take you to the Beginners Sampler playlist, and it will list all of the videos involved, and also the supplies that you will need is also in there. So let's take a look at the 10th block. This is a heart. It should be pretty easy to see that that's what it is. This is a relatively simple block. It doesn't have a lot of pieces in it, so it won't take you too long to put it together. These are two large half square triangles. You have one long strip here and then four smaller half square triangles. Okay, let's go over the pieces that you need to cut. Okay, remember all of the block sizes are going to be finished at 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches. I'm using my fabric B and C, and B is the heart and C is the background fabric. Now you'll need one 3.5 by 12.5 piece of fabric B, two 4.5 inch squares, and one 7.5 inch square. Out of fabric C you will need two 4.5 inch squares and one 7.5 inch square. Now, if you've never cut quilt fabric before, watch the video, Tips for Cutting Quilt Fabric, and I give you an easy method to follow that's very efficient, so you won't be wasting a lot of time cutting out one little piece at a time. All right, the letters in this layout, all the letters represent the fabric. So this is fabric C, the background, and all of the B's is the heart. Okay, all right, let me put this aside. Take your two fabric C squares, your small ones, and you're going to place your ruler in the center, and you're going to draw a line down the center. Okay, now you're going to draw two more lines 1/4 inch away from the center line. So place your 1/4 inch line here on that center line and draw a line. Then on the other side, put your 1/4 inch line on that center line and draw your last line. Okay? Now take your two fabric B squares and match them up with a fabric C and bring right sides together. Now stitch on the two outer lines on both sets. Okay, now you're going to cut them in half, both of them. Place your ruler back on that center line and cut them in half. Okay, now you're going to have 4 pieces. Take 2 of them and have the light side facing up and the other 2 with the dark side facing up. Press all 4 seams on the back side. Then when you go to press on the top side, as you lift it up, make sure on these 2 that the seam is all going towards the light side of the block on both of them. And then on these 2, make sure the seam, as you press on top, is going towards the dark side. Okay, now that you've pressed everything, you're going to square all 4 of them to 3.5 inches square. Right now they're a rough 4 inches. So on your ruler, and I highly recommend if you're going to make this quilt to have a 12.5 inch square ruler. It will make life much easier for you as you're building this quilt. Take your diagonal line here on your ruler and place it on the seam. Now, as you're placing it on the seam, you want to make sure you have a little bit of fabric, excess fabric over here and here. Now here are my 3.5-inch square lines here and here. You also want to make sure there's fabric hanging out beyond that 3.5-inch square line. Then once you've got it all lined up, you're going to cut 2 sides. All right? And then cut this last side here. Now, here's your 2 cut sides. Turn the block, and now you're going to cut the last 2 sides. Now when you place your ruler down, you're going to place the 3.5-inch line here and here on the 2 previously cut edges. So lay it on there. While you're laying it on there, you also want to make sure that your diagonal line is still on top of that seam. Okay? Now, go ahead and cut your last 2 sides. Okay? And now remember to do this on all 4 of the blocks. Okay? All right, now you want to take your large 7.5-inch square of fabric C and B. You're only going to have one of each of these. You're going to do the same process you just did on the small half square triangles. You're going to draw a line down the center from corner to corner. Then draw 2 more lines 1/4 inch away. Then bring right sides together of the C and the B squares. Bring right sides together. Then on your 2 outer lines, you're going to stitch all the way across. Then when you're done with that, place your ruler back on top of that center line and cut your block in half. All right, so now you're going to have 2 pieces. Have one side with the dark side up and the other side with the light side up. Okay? Press both seams on the back side. Then as you go to press on top, lift up this piece, pressing on the seam, making sure that this seam goes towards the light side. Okay? And then on this one here, make sure when you press on top that it's going to go towards the dark side, the seam. Okay? All right, now you're going to square that block to 7.5 inches. To 6.5 inches. Right now your square is roughly 7 inches squared. So you're going to do it in the same manner you did the smaller ones. Place your diagonal line on the seam. Make sure you have excess fabric hanging out here and here, and then that you have a little bit of fabric hanging out past the 6.5-inch line here and here. Now you're going to cut 2 sides. And one more side. Now turn the block, place your ruler on that diagonal line, but now you need to make sure that your 6.5-inch line here and here is also on the raw edge of the 2 previously cut sides. Once you have it all lined up, then cut your last 2 sides. Okay? All right, so now you've got all your blocks squared. Remember, square both of these larger blocks. Now we're just going to lay it all out, okay? So take your 2 large half square triangles and place them down first, okay? Whoops, there we go. So that it looks like this. This is the bottom part of the heart. Then take your long strip, 3.5 by 12.5 inch piece, place it there. Now take your smaller half square triangles. Now, these 2 right here, the seam is going towards the dark, and these 2 over here, the seam, these 2 are going towards the dark, and these 2 are going towards the light. All right, make sure you have them in a little pile like that. Now we're going to alternate it, but when we place them down, we're going to place one with the seam to the dark, to the light, to the dark, to the light. So take one that's going towards the dark and place it like that. Now take one with the seam going towards the lighter side and place it there like that. Now go back to the dark, going back to the dark side, and your last one is going towards the light side. Okay? Now we're going to stitch all of the rows together. So let's take this one here. Lay this one on top. And now you want to match those seams up right in there. And once you've got them matched up, always put a pin in there. And what I mean by match, one seam is going in one direction and the other seam is going in the opposite direction. These should be locked in real close to each other. Always pin that seam because as you stitch, it could shift. So finish pinning across, then stitch 1/4 inch seam here. Okay? So now you have these two stitched together. There's nothing to stitch in this row, just let it lay there. Now let's go up to this row. Take this block and lay it on top. Okay? And again, match your seams, making sure they're going in an opposite direction. Place a pin in that seam, line up your block all the way, and stitch 1/4 inch here. Then go to the next two, lay them on top, match up the seam in this corner here, make sure the seams are going in opposite direction. Okay, place a pin in there to hold it in place and stitch 1/4 inch. Okay, one more step for this row. Now you want to take this side and lay it on top of this side. So lay it on top. Again, line up your seams, making sure they go in opposite directions. Pin it and stitch 1/4 inch. Now you have this row all stitched together. Now we're going to press these two rows. We're going to press those seams. So let's start here. I'm going to turn it over. You'll see that this seam, and this seam are all going in the same direction. And let me show you an easy process how to do that. First, press your seam on the back side. Then press this one, and then this one. Okay, now, when I go to press my seams on top, I usually keep the strip lifted a little bit. And push against that seam with your iron, pushing this seam out and away from you. Then go to the next one, keep this lifted slightly, pushing that seam with your iron, and then on your third one. Okay, so now all the seams are pressed here. Now on this one, same thing, always press your seams on the back side first, then unfold it and press the seam on the top, pushing this seam out and away from you. Okay, so now you have all the rows stitched. Now all we need to do is stitch the 3 rows together. So take this row and place it on top of the strip. Okay. Now I always pin my seams down because they have a tendency to shift while you're stitching. And pin across and stitch 1/4 inch up here. Then unfold it. And then take your next piece, the bottom part of the heart. Let me get this apart here. Here we go. Okay, these two are stitched together. Take this one, lay it on top, and pin your seams down, pin across, stitch 1/4 inch. Okay, one more step and we'll be done. Now, on the back side, here is that center strip right here. These two seams that we just stitched, you want to press them in towards this part of the block, towards that strip. First, always press your seam on the back side. So press this one and then press this one. Then we'll go to the front side of the block, keep it lifted a little bit, and as you're pressing this seam, push against it, forcing this seam towards the strip in the middle. Make sure it's all going across in that direction. Then turn it, keep this side of the block lifted a little bit, pushing against the seam as you press, forcing it to go towards the strip. Okay? And there you have a heart. This was a really fun block to make. I really liked it, and I think that you're going to find it a lot of fun to make too. Remember, there are fewer pieces, so it's not as difficult to try to remember where everything is all the time. Okay, now let's take a look at the next block. I also love this one too. Of course, I love all my blocks. I pick the ones that I like. Okay, this is Northern Lights. Isn't this one pretty? This has 2 large half square triangles, just like the previous block, and in the corner, each corner here, it has a 4 patch, which means there are 4 squares stitched together. This is also a block that won't take a whole lot of time to put together. I think that you're going to find it relatively simple to make. Okay? Well, I hope that you take on this project. I know you're going to learn a lot. Now, to keep informed on all my future videos, click on one of my subscribe buttons. There's one down there in the lower right-hand corner throughout the entire video. It's red and it says subscribe. You can click on that one at any time. Then in the last 20 seconds or so of the video is a little round picture of me floating up here. That's also a subscribe button, so you can click on that one too. When you click on that, YouTube will prompt you for your email address. Enter that information, and the next time I have a new video, YouTube sends you a very brief email with a big button in the center. Click on that button and it takes you directly to my latest video. I'm Cheryl. I'm really glad you came to my sewing room. Now I'll see you next time, and happy sewing.